Hi there, everyone. Oh gosh. I want to rank all the dystopian movies that are based on book series. I'm gonna rank all the movies that are based on young adult dystopian book series. Now, 3 film series were watched in preparation for this video. They were The Hunger Games, The Maze Runners, and the Divergent Trilogy. That's 11 movies in total. We're gonna start from the worst. In 11th place is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Are you going to watch the movie about the sexy blonde boy becoming Pan Am Hitler? You probably shouldn't do that. It's not worth your time. Trying to watch this movie after watching the originals just really hits home how awful corporate cinema has gotten. This movie feels empty. CGI looks awful. There's a moment where they throw all the tributes into a zoo exhibit and there's like 2 girls there and they're just there to see the main character girl from District 12, and there's also one reporter there who's just clearly a knockoff of the top knot guy from the originals, and he literally says the line, "I don't love your odds, but may they be in your favor," which is just clearly one of those cutesy little nods to the fact that everybody's always saying may the odds be ever in your favor in the actual Hunger Games movies. Like if you watch the original reaping scene from Hunger Games 1 right next to the reaping scene from Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, the energy is just so different and awful in the new one. In the new one, the main character utilizes it as a sing-song moment because the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a pseudo-musical movie. And it's awful. It's so cringe. Imagine trying to watch this with a straight face.
'Cause it's just a rumor. Nothing you can take was ever worth keeping. You can't take my sad. You can't take my talking.
I couldn't do it. I was cringing. I was rolling all over my couch, dying inside. What is this? This movie was made for a TikTok algorithm. And then the entire plot of the movie is so contrived. Like it literally opens up with sexy fascist Snow going to his Hitler youth classes, and they announce that this year we're not just gonna give you the scholarship, you're gonna have to be a mentor for one of the tributes, and if your tribute wins, then you'll get the scholarship. The actual Hunger Games itself takes up half the film, and then the second half of the film is fascist Snowboy cosplaying as Slim Shady. And that's a delight, isn't it? I mean, we gotta talk about this. Snow is going on his little become a fascist journey. His mentor in this journey is a cartoonishly evil fascist who is, get this, a black woman in Johnny Depp cosplay. Putting anybody into Johnny Depp cosplay should be a hate crime, but to do it to her and put her in that role was just... Anyways, in 10th place we have Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. This movie is terrible in my eyes. First and foremost because whoever split up Mockingjay into 2 movies, screw you. You're not Twilight. You can't do that. The main reason why I hate this film is because they literally just spent the entire series showing us the corruption of the Hunger Games, President Snow, the Capitol, and capitalism itself, and yet at the last minute, in the end game, they're gonna pull the rug out on all that and reveal to us that actually the real villain of the series was the revolutionary leader who has been working this whole time to liberate the districts from exploitation and a literal child slaughter lottery. She's actually the villain because actually all that she wanted was to take power for herself. Like it wasn't even set up. My sisters claim in the books it was set up more clearly than this, but as far as I'm concerned, in these films and probably in the books as well, this finale is designed to reinforce the idea that we just gotta stick with the status quo. It's like, oh yeah, you could resist the ruling class who exploits the working people for profit, who forces us to slave our lives away in order to fund a private utopia for the rich, and who allows children across the globe to starve. You could resist that, but doing that would actually make you no better than the Capitol themselves, so it's better to just stay in the status quo. I hate any sort of filmmaking that's just designed to defend the status quo. Like superhero movies. Why have we not gotten a single superhero movie where they're like, hey, I'm a superhero. I'm gonna end homelessness and starvation and poverty. Instead, he's just like, I'm Captain America. I fight for America. I represent American interests. Just send me to Venezuela. I'll support your coup over there and make sure the US gets all that oil. Yeah. I'm not happy about that one, mate. All right, we've literally just been watching the Capitol take children and make them kill each other for sport. And now you're telling me that the person who's trying to end that is actually bad because the last second, because you wrote it that way, now she's saying, what if we did one more Hunger It's stupid. In ninth place, we have Allegiant. The Divergent series is a very fun, very realistic series about children having more than one personality type and that making them enemies of the state. If you want a good picture of what's happening in this movie, the former leader, who was committing insane murders, is replaced by a new leader so that she can be the one committing insane murders. Meanwhile, they're all secretly under the control of a wealthy corporation whose boss doesn't care if they live or die so long as he can secure more funding. So on one hand, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but on the other hand, it is somehow an accurate representation of US politics under capitalism. So we gotta give it credit where credit is due, at least. There is a great line in this where the new leader is doing executions, and she specifically decides to kill this one person who killed a lot of innocent people. And they gave him a truth serum first so that they could give him a fair trial. And he admits at that point that he viewed all of the innocent people that he killed as mere sheep. So then they say, okay, we're gonna kill you for that. And he says, I don't wanna die. And they say, neither did your sheep. And that line freaking slapped. I also just love how the big reveal in this movie is that the reason why this whole series exists is because they started doing GMOs, but for humans instead of plants. Referring to people as genetically pure, that's shady. But it did give us this beautiful line from Triss. It doesn't make a difference if you're pure or if you're damaged. Final takeaway, that movie is hot dog water. In eighth place, we have Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials. The trick that this film plays on us is giving us a really entertaining final 20 minutes to make up for the hour and 40 minutes that you have to suffer through where everybody's just wandering around in the desert with very vague motivations. And that's my issue with this film. But if you want to know really how I feel about this movie, I think the worst sin that it commits is that at the start of the movie, all the boys climb into their bunk beds with their freaking boots on. Take your boots off, boys. In seventh place, we have The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 1. This movie is so boring because it's half a movie. And so for an hour and a half, I was dying inside trying to get through it. And then randomly, Prim runs back to rescue her cat from a bombing, and I started crying like crazy. So that's one good thing that's in this movie. I enjoyed the revolutionary aspects of this film because we hadn't gotten to that dumb plot twist yet, and the one thing that bothered me is that I feel like for some reason Katniss wasn't a revolutionary. Everybody around Katniss is like trying to convince her that she needs to oppose the Capitol, and it's like, Katniss, how are you not already convinced after 2 Hunger Games? Like, your sister was gonna go to the Hunger Games. And then in the Hunger Games, there was Rue, a little child who was killed. And then you had to go back again, and you had to do your victory tour where you watched the stormtroopers oppressing the people. How is it that you still need to be convinced that the revolution is a good idea? They should have just made her read some Lenin and Marx or something. But there is a great scene in this movie where one of the districts all climb up into the trees and then they blow up bombs and take out the stormtroopers that way, and that is freaking awesome. Highly recommend just that scene. In sixth place is The Maze Runner. And The Maze Runner literally is just a weirdly fun movie about going, wait, what's happening? It's set up like it's supposed to be some great mystery for us to solve and work out, but you don't solve it. They just tell you what's going on at the end, sort of. To the character Chuck, my comrade, you would not catch me dead telling people that I clunked my pants 3 times in the box before I was willing to come out.
I clunked my pants 3 times before they got me out of the pit.
Why in the pants, Chuck? Why would you clunk in the pants? Sure, you're scared, you're hiding in that box. The boys are maybe all around being like, just come out of the box, and you're like, no, I don't want to. But if you had to clunk, pull your pants down and drop it in a corner. You're telling me you did 3 consecutive loads of clunk into your pants, Chuck? One on top of the other? And then you're just carrying them around in the box? Chuck, and how long is that? How often are you clunking, Chuck? Did you stay in there, what, like 3-4 days? Just to clunk 3 consecutive times in your pants and then tell Thomas about it? You should have your lips sealed about that. You should kill anybody who mentions it. Chuck, that's crazy, dude. And wash your hands, please. Just because I feel like you're dirty after hearing that story. I literally heard that line in the movie and then had to Google what does clunk mean in the Maze Runner universe, and I was very disappointed to find out what it meant. Why was that line in the movie? If it was in the book, why was it in the book? I don't believe Chuck did that, honestly. Maybe it's a figure of speech, but Chuck, don't use that as a figure of speech. Because I'm still gonna tell you to go wash your hands if you use it as a figure of speech, Chuck. That's disgusting. All that I have in my head is an image of 3 clunks in the pants, in the drawers. swanging around, dangling in there. Chuck, do better. In 5th place is The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. This movie has a very solid revolutionary storyline set up. Basically, they've got the rich and the poor divided by massive walls. The poor are rallying around a people's army who seeks to destroy the class divide. And meanwhile, within those walls of the rich walled-off city, children are being tortured by a corporation called Wicked. Everything is so perfectly set up for us to get a big, beautiful revolutionary battle here. But when Thomas meets the leader of the revolution, who's just Baby Billy from the Righteous Gemstones, he's like, I'm a businessman. If you want my help in overthrowing Wicked, you gotta get me personally some of the drugs that I want for myself. I just don't buy that you're the revolutionary leader and then your focus isn't liberating the oppressed. It's what can I get for myself out of helping them liberate the oppressed. I feel like so many of these movies try to mask their revolutionary themes by not making it about the revolution, but like by making it about rescuing one person, right? Like Thomas is really only going in there to fight Wicked so that he can rescue Minho. But the reality is class struggle, right? That's like the underlying theme. But we're not here to do class struggle. We're here to rescue Minho because he's our sexy boy. He's one of the boys. You know what I mean? Anyways, the funny thing about that businessman characterization of the revolutionary leader is that later on in the film, he literally just sacrifices himself for the revolution. Just right away, unprompted, goes full on, like guns blazing into the throat of death itself. And then I'm like, okay, so maybe that was just poor characterization. That's just bad writing. Because clearly, man was all in on the revolution. There's a really cool train heist at the start of this movie. Enjoyed it for that. However, I feel like this movie wants you to feel like there was a really beautiful communist ending because all of the kids who were being tested on and tortured have been liberated. They're all living on this beautiful island doing a sort of commune thing. So you'd think, yay, beautiful communist ending, right? But they left all the poor people. They left behind all the poor people who were trying to do the revolutionary fight, and they didn't give them the cure. Thomas had the cure, and he took it with him to his little paradise island and left the poor. And now basically there's just a giant water wall that's separating the healthy from the poor who are sick. As much as you want me to say, oh yeah, good revolutionary filmmaking, I can't. Because I feel like a true revolutionary, Thomas, would have said, my blood is the cure, I have the cure right here, I'm gonna give it to you poor and oppressed people who have been living outside the wall. In 4th place, we have Divergent. Divergent is possibly one of the dumbest things that I've ever watched in my life. However, that does not mean that it is not good, because I enjoyed it so much for some reason. Do you realize how main character coded Triss is? It's like Triss finds out she's the one person who has multiple personality traits. Oh my gosh, I guess I just want to be brave and kind and wise and truthful. Do you know how many kiddos are going to be watching that and being like, oh my gosh, I'm just like Triss, this is crazy. Because I was there. I was right there with her. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm Divergent. Dauntless is so funny. They introduced Dauntless with her doing some sort of narration where she's like, they're the police force, they're brave, they're free. And then you see these absolute hooligans, all dressed in black and in leather. They're climbing on shit, they're pumping their fists, they're being a loud nuisance. Dauntless is so dumb, dude. There's this whole scene when they get to Dauntless where 4 is like, hey, shut your freaking mouths. What makes you think you can talk back to me and make jokes about me? And it's like, my dude, you just watch all of these people jump off of a moving train and then jump down onto this long trampoline net thing in the pit of darkness. And now you're expecting them to all just be like little simps for you and just shut up? They're freaking free spirits, my dude. And then Dauntless is like so abusive to all the new members too. They're like, the bottom people who can't pass our tests, we're gonna make you factionless. We're just going to canonically turn you homeless and nobody's gonna question it. And one guy who starts losing at the tasks completes suicide. And I'm sorry, but Dauntless, you just drove a child to suicide. And we're all watching it like it's so normal. It's like so weirdly abusive and dark. The point is, it's so fun. I feel like Shailene Woodley is the queen of these young adult series because she takes it so seriously. It's a movie where having multiple personality traits is perceived as bad and dangerous, and she's out there acting her heart out, crying like I've never seen anybody cry in any movie ever over the death of her mother in Divergent. Now in 3rd place, we gotta talk about the movie Insurgent. Hear me out. A fascist woman is killing civilians for having more than one personality trait, but she also needs someone with 5 whole personality traits to open a magic box for her that she hopes will prove once and for all that it's okay to kill civilians who have more than one personality trait. They open the box at the end, and guess what? Turns out the people with multiple personality traits are actually good. This is the dumbest fascist I've ever met in my life. She's walking around in her Hillary Clinton cosplay, killing people for having a personality. The thing is, it's so good. Triss goes insane in this movie. She's doing crazy flips. She's swinging off of a little house that's floating in the air. There's a scene where 4 literally says to some factionless people, "I am him."
Well, you know him? I am him.
And that rules. Somehow, the movie is goated. In second place is the original Hunger Games. Here's what I've written about the original Hunger Games. A movie about wealthy people getting all dressed up to cheer while poor children die. Capitalism is a cancer on this earth which justifies war, imperialism, colonialism, apartheid, genocide, homelessness, poverty, starvation, exploitation, ecocide, and fascism so long as the owning, ruling class sees their profits go up. When the elites profit off the suffering and death of the masses, they are cheering while poor children die. We live in the Hunger Games. Ooh! Dude, I cook on Letterboxd. I go to Letterboxd to cook exclusively. There's only one thing that drives me crazy about this movie, and that is how shaky the shaky cam is and how pervasive it is throughout the whole film. But I'm not gonna let that detract from the film's greatness and the themes that this film is presenting. Frankly, if our hearts could burn every time a child was struck by a bomb our tax dollars paid for, or every time a child starved to death in a nation we exploited, perhaps the seeds of revolution could be planted within us like they were in District 11, and that's what I have to say about that. As you probably guessed then, as I've talked about every other film except for this one, the #1 movie in this list, Hunger Games: Catching Fire. This movie takes everything great about the first Hunger Games and amplifies it and does it all with a steady camera. So you know it's good! Catching Fire is basically Vladimir Lenin's The State and Revolution, but for horny young adult series enjoyers. Let me read to you some of Haymitch's lines in this movie because he cooks every freaking time he opens his mouth. He says on the victory tour after Katniss has just seen an innocent person get shot for trying to stand up to the stormtroopers, he pulls Katniss aside and says, "What about them? Who protects them?" And then he says before she goes in to fight, when you're in the arena, remember who the real enemy is. Remember who the real enemy is like a theme throughout this whole movie, and it freaking rules, dude. Once again, the only issue that this movie has is that Katniss herself is not a revolutionary. Everybody around her is. Even that sexy guy who pulled up with the bracelet, which by the way, the scene where he drinks the water out of the tree, that was freaking hot on another level. That said, I just desperately want her to be a revolutionary so bad. Every now and then she says a great line about the working class standing united against this freaking slaughtered lottery thing. Every now and then she cooks. Now, I haven't really talked about a main aspect of these Hunger Games films yet, but I would like to mention the aspect of the love triangle, because I do feel like the Hunger Games was the series that pioneered the love triangle, which we then saw so much across cinema and books after that. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, no, Twilight pioneered the love triangle. But that's not true, okay? Because did you think Jacob actually had a chance at any point in that? It was clear from book 1 that he was a pedophile and he was just waiting for her to have a baby so that he could imprint on the baby and be in love with a baby. Meanwhile, Edward is also a pedophile, considering the fact that he is like 100 years old and she is a high school student. I'm sorry, but when your choices are 2 pedophiles, that is not a real love triangle. That is a real red flag. Can you imagine if she had gone with Jacob? What would have happened then? He has the baby with her, imprints on his own child? What are we even talking about here anymore? How did we end up on this? Freaking love triangles. You see what happens when you talk about love triangles? The only love triangle that I will support going forward is thruples, okay? If you're gonna introduce a love triangle, they all 3 have to kiss each other in the end and be in love together. And that's the only thing that I'll accept. In my head canon, that's how Challengers ended. Because let's be real, they all 3 loved each other. How did I get on Challengers from this? Those are the rankings of the dystopian young adult book series movies where every dystopia needs to be overthrown by communism. Stat. And best wishes to you if you've made it through this mess. Because I sure have. Anyways, now's a good time to tell you I plan to take a week off at least from uploading videos because I'm working on a script for a very big video, which is set to be my first maybe real life video essay. It's gonna be about Southern gospel music as remembered by me, and so look forward to that. I also have other big videos planned out in the works coming soon. There is currently a glitch happening on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard about this, but apparently if you subscribe to this channel, you're freaking cool. So get on that while you can. Yeah, leave a like, leave a comment. You know what they say, workers of the world unite. Come on now. Whoa. Editing Brannon here, just to say, Chuck, 3 clunks? You clunked into your pants, and then sat there long enough to need to clunk again, and clunked into the clunk that was already in your pants. And then you sat there long enough in the 2 clunks that you needed to clunk a 3rd time, and then you clunked into the clunk that was in the clunk already, and then you just, what? And then you got out with 3 clunks sagging in your pants? Triple clunked up on a Tuesday? Chuck. Oh, Chuck. There is a limit to how much clunk a pant can handle, Chuck. Was getting out of the elevator that scary that you thought a better option would be to clunk in your pants on 3 occasions? Clunk on clunk on clunk. All in your pants. All contained. All consistently contained in your pants, Chuck. I can't remember where I put the Maze Runner, but actually put it down. Put it down lower. I'm changing the ranking now. The Maze Runner goes lower for that line.